Happy 713 day, everybody. Yes, according to this podcast, yes, this is another episode. I am doing this for over 2 days, but I am releasing it on July 13th, which is also 713 day in the city of Houston. And I am so excited to celebrate this day once again with you, very much so. What is up, everyone? Kenneth the K-Rock Klein coming to you live from another special edition of, or I should say for another special edition. Sorry, I got a little bit of a distraction there from a message from my good friend Catherine Christie. And, well, actually, it's funny because we were actually talking about Hurricane Beryl, and we were just talking about how the weather was down in Houston and everything, and how the weather is getting ridiculous, how we've managed to go through a hurricane and a derecho at least. I mean, we've had some crazy weather events happen in our lives, but needless to say, this has kind of been crazy as far as Houston going through a derecho and also through a Hurricane Beryl as of right now. But good news, she is okay, in case you're probably wondering. My good friend Catherine is all right, and I asked if her mom was doing okay, and her mom is also doing okay. So very happy to see, I'm very happy to see that, they're doing all right as well, and I think we both agree the weather has been getting ridiculous lately. Hopefully this leads to some positive things for Houston, unlike the electric situation, which hasn't occurred for the city. And I think the state of Texas really needs to do something about this, because it's absolutely crazy how you had this incredible winter, and you had this crazy winter where everything was just frozen solid of snow and all this and that. But yeah, it was it's just so crazy how they don't seem to do anything about the electric company or the energy. And now that we had a hurricane, this is actually still a problem. And I think the electric situation is the biggest problem for Texas, not so much for all these re-election talks and everything. But sorry to get ahead of myself here, as I was a little distracted, but I do thank Catherine for letting me know that she was all right, and her family as well. But anyways, folks, this is another episode of Krocking, Locking, and Dropping, episode number 23. And wow, talk about me making some progress here on this podcast. I never would have envisioned getting up to 23 podcasts to this point when I started this and all that. But hey, I'm making some progress. I'm doing what I'm doing, and even if I'm not getting as much audience members as I would like to at this point, but it's okay. It's still a long progress. I think when it comes to newcomer podcasters, you're not going to have that ideal audience right away, but as soon as you keep picking up more and more, you might get some more audience progression. So, we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, my podcast, of course, Krocking, Locking, and Dropping. You can listen to it on Spotify, Podbean, and also I'm going to be uploading these to my YouTube channel at KWCLINE 91. So you cannot bear to miss out on these episodes. So today I wanted to talk about the ESPY Awards and how they were, my thoughts on that. I didn't necessarily, get too caught up with all the hoopla and stuff. Just kind of my thoughts in general about the ESPY Awards this year, what they did right, and what, really has been a big low for people as far as the ESPYs community and everything, and why it's kind of been a bit of a drawback to those that used to watch it and really enjoyed it over the years before something just kind of went entirely wrong. And I want to talk about my thoughts on CJ Stroud, who was nominated for Best Breakthrough Athlete of the Year, and also was in the same category as Victor Wembanyama, but neither of them actually won the award. That award went to, I want to say, Juju Watkins, a women's college basketball player from USC. I'm going to give my thoughts on that. Was CJ Stroud robbed? Was Victor Wembanyama robbed? Or does it really matter? We'll have more on that in just a moment. So I kind of wanted to talk about my, thoughts on that whole ESPY Awards situation. But first and foremost, I have some good news. I have been in contact with my co-host, Mark T. Robinson of Two Pals on a Pod, and he is going to be getting his computer back sometime next week, and that means we should be having an episode call out for you soon, Two Pals on a Pod, which we cannot wait for anyone or everyone to have on our other podcasts, Two Pals on a Pod. So we have not been doing this for a couple of months just because of some technical issues and everything. And I hate to bring up Mark's personal situation, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I've been doing this podcast sololy, if there ever was such a word as sololy. I've been doing this podcast basically to kind of keep myself engaged in conversations, expressing my viewpoints and such, because a lot of sports can't happen in these last 2 months, even though we're still in the summer months. Baseball season about to have its all-star game, football preseason training camp ready to start back up, and then of course, for this year at least, the Olympic Games are starting back up. And I talked about my viewpoints on Team USA, and so yeah, that is definitely where we stand as a moment. But we should be having an episode on that really soon, and looking forward to getting back with my old colleague as well. So, folks, we're going to step aside for a moment, but when we come back, I'm going to be giving out my thoughts on the ESPY Awards, so stay tuned. Last night, as of this podcast, the ESPY Awards were presented on ESPN, ABC. And basically, for those that don't know what the ESPY Awards are, this is like ESPN's version of the Oscars, or it's the Grammys and everything. Like, basically, they take all the highlights from the previous sports year, and they actually, they take all the highlights and stuff from the previous sports year and such, and they have decided to, put it together on this ballot and have fans vote. And although recently, I have to admit, the fan vote situation is becoming a little bit contagious or a little bit awkwardness, because sometimes I look at the award winners as of last year or this award season, and I sometimes wonder, did the fans really vote for that person, or was there any sort of scheming going on behind to make sure that the person that they actually want to win, the people that run the ESPY Awards, kind of screws up the whole balloting system. And look, I'm not saying the votes were rigged, okay? I'm not going to pull off this whole conspiracy theory that the election was rigged or the voting was rigged and everything and this and that. But it does kind of make you wonder. It makes you very suspicious of it. But obviously, we don't really know the entire vote counts, and we probably never will for these awards. But basically, every year, the ESPY Awards, they usually come out on July, which is like the halfway point from the end of one traditional sports year to the beginning of the traditional sports year. Although baseball still kind of coincides with each award as well. So they basically start the sports year in like August, and then they run all the way through July or so. Like from the beginning of college football season to the end of the Stanley Cup Finals, they'll have these major awards and everything. So, and yeah, they have like some great awards. They have like best male athlete, best female athlete, best team, best breakthrough athlete. I'll talk about that award in just a moment. And then they have best upset, or they've kind of lost some of its luster because of the awards, because there were like a lot of big awards. Like they used to have like sports best game or best sports movie, and for some reason those awards got taken down. And then they used to have best coach of the year, which also got taken down. And it's kind of sad, just because the awards have lost some of its luster over the years, and it's really just kind of sad. Just the fact that, I used to watch the awards every year when I was a young kid growing up. Like, I used to watch all the ESPY Awards highlights and see the awards and everything. I didn't care about all the host or the funny skits. I mean, sure, it was nice to see, I know Will Ferrell was at one point a host. I think, some of the others were hosts. Jamie Foxx, Matthew Perry, the late Matthew Perry, be host of the show. Lance Armstrong, before everything with the drug situation, the steroids came out. Before that, he was a popular athlete. He won 7 Tour de France's in a row. That has since been taken away from him because of the drugs. But he was a host of the ESPY Awards at one point. And Samuel L. Jackson, now there's a guy that could host a show. So Really interesting to see all the awards as well. But anyways, I wanted to kind of talk about my thoughts on the ESPY Awards. And so, for me, the biggest highlight of the ESPY Awards was every year they have like special awards. They have the Jimmy V Award, which is given to someone who overcame a disability and everything to succeed. And that, of course, was named after the late head coach Jim Valvano, who led North Carolina State to a national championship in 1983 against the University of Houston Cougars. Now, I'm not a Houston grad. I did apply for the University of Houston when I was in high school. Sadly, they were the only school that rejected me. But you know what? It's okay. I'm not mad about that. But it is unfortunate, a bad sports moment in Houston. If you think back to the days of Phi Slamma Jamma with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, they lost the national championship game to Jim Valvano and North Carolina State. I almost said Northwestern State for a moment. I must have had a conversation about Northwestern State with somebody today. But North Carolina State that won a national championship. Anyway, Jim Valvano had cancer, and in 1993 he was given the award, and he gave this rousing speech, which basically told everyone to never give up on everything. And so every year they had the Jimmy V Award for courage, and they gave the award to South Carolina head coach Dawn Staley, which I'm not, I definitely support that decision. I definitely think she's a great coach for leading South Carolina to national championships, especially as a female African-American head coach, which is something that is truly taken over the landscape, just, with her being the standard of all black head coaches in college athletics, especially on the women's basketball side. And certainly, in my opinion, she's probably the best coach in the game right now at this point. So she won the Jimmy V Award. Then they gave out the Pat Tillman Award for humanitarian, and they gave the award to Prince Harry, which, okay, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Like, that's almost like, giving a Pat Tillman Award named after a former football player who, rather than take up this big contract to continue playing the NFL, signed up to join the military and fought bravely in overseas in Iraq in the aftermath of 9/11 and stayed there for a few years until he tragically passed away in a friendly fire situation. So you give the award to Prince Harry, who has been a polarizing figure in the public world. Not so much for the fact that he once was brothers with Prince William and has since diverted himself away from the royal family, but that he's also married to actress Meghan Markle, who has also kind of been a polarizing figure. I'm not going to go too much into that, but when I first saw that award, I'm just thinking, what exactly did Prince Harry do that was worthy of being named the Pat Tillman winner? But then I double checked, and I'm reading an article on this right now. It says that he served in the British Army for 10 years, and he was recognized for the award for his work with the Invictus Games, which is an international sporting event for wounded servicemen and women that he founded in 2014. And okay, that's a very interesting that's an interesting thing that he did. So that's one way of serving military figures, especially for those that were wounded, during their line of duty or their service. And it's also interesting that Pat Tillman's mother was not too happy that was not too happy that he won the award. I guess because of all the controversies that followed him, especially whether it's the marriage to Meghan Markle or, his diversion from the royal family and everything. But yeah, it was a very interesting thing. Yet, I think Prince Harry made the most of his situation when he, mentioned that he talked about, Pat Tillman's mother in his speech. He said, "I like to acknowledge the Tillman family, especially Miss Mary Tillman, Pat's mother. Her advocacy for Pat's legacy is deeply personal and one that I respect. The bond between a mother and son is eternal and transcends even the greatest losses." The truth is, I stand here not as Prince Harry, Pat Tillman Award recipient, but rather a voice on behalf of the Invictus Games Foundation and the thousands of veterans and service personnel from over 20 nations who have made the Invictus Games a reality. This award belongs to them, not to me. And I think that's a very fair statement. I know that most people will look at look at Prince Harry and think there is no way he resembles that of Pat Tillman. And I think he's right. Just because Prince Harry is a well-known, famous person for reasons right or wrong doesn't necessarily mean that we should be overshadowing this award for what he did as far as helping the military men. And I think Pat Tillman, and again, I don't know Pat Tillman's family. I don't know his widow. I don't know his mother. I don't know him at all. Nobody does, except for those closest to him. But I think Pat Tillman would be all right with this. I think once you get past all the negative attention and all the drama that surrounded Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, in all the royal family situations, once you get past that and once you see what he's done, then you look back and you say, I think he was deserving of that award. So I don't necessarily find fault with Prince Harry, although initially when I first learned about this, I was very skeptical. So Prince Harry was the winner of the Pat Tillman Award, but perhaps the biggest winner of the night was the winner of the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, given to Steve Gleason. And Steve Gleason, who, for those of you that don't know his story, was a former NFL player who played for the New Orleans Saints. He is best remembered for making a blocking a punt against the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football in the very first game that the Saints played at the Superdome following Hurricane Katrina. And it is that one play that you can argue is the greatest play in the history of the New Orleans Saints franchise. Better than Tracy Porter's Super Bowl pick six interception, better than the onside kick in that same Super Bowl that the Saints pulled off as well. But yeah, I would say arguably Steve Gleason's block punt in that Monday Night Football game was the best one ever. But Steve Gleason became a legend in the city of New Orleans. And unfortunately, in 2010, he had been diagnosed with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is basically a disease that shuts down all the muscles and motor within you, and you are basically placed in a vegetated state for the rest of your life. There is no cure for this, and on average, it's expected that humans live for 5 years, at least on average of 5 years, with this disease. But as it turns out, Steve Gleason has lived with this for 13 to 14 years now, and he has done a lot for the community for ALS, for those that are fighting that disease, which of course ALS was also the same disease named after Lou Gehrig, the famous Yankees first baseman who played in 2,130 consecutive games, a then Major League Baseball record, and also gave perhaps the greatest sports speech of all time when he declared himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth at Yankee Stadium on July 4th, 1939. And he said it in a way that, he was going through a lot of bad things, but, at that moment, but yet he was remembering, he was grateful to be, given all the credit and the recognition for all that he achieved on the baseball field. But Steve Gleason, of course, was the winner of this award because of his ongoing battle with ALS. And I got to tell you what, I saw the Tribune, and I had seen Steve Gleason in the state that he was in when his health, like his state, continued to kind of get worse and worse. And he was still communicating. Like, he communicates with his eyes. They put him in a wheelchair, and he can communicate with his eyes. And that to me is really impressive. And he gave one of the best speeches out there. The audience there, they gave him a standing ovation. He had his son there with him to help him out. And Drew Brees, of course, was the man who presented the award to him. Drew Brees was his former teammate in New Orleans. And, just the impact that Steve Gleason made. And I want to bring out Steve Gleason's speech, something that I really think needs to be discussed. Something that he said that I I cannot, begin to describe the impact for somebody that couldn't even move his mouth, somebody that used his eyes to communicate with this. But there was something that he said that I really think needs to be discussed and taken into consideration. So I'm pulling this speech up right now, and the truth is, no human is immune from fear or adversity, not even super athletes, royal princes, or the most holy saints. Considering the truth of our humanity, it's vital that we all individually and collectively discover ways to be courageous and love the life we have. My view is that the fears and adversities we encounter are our opportunity to accept what is and explore what is on the other side of fear, to grow stronger, better, and have a peace of mind. From this perspective, resiliency, moving through the adversities that life brings us, is our purpose in being human. It is clear to me that our ability to courageously share our vulnerabilities with each other is our greatest strength. By doing this, we're able to understand the issue, compassionately collaborate with each other to solve problems, and overcome fear. Without the understanding and compassion support from my family, community, and caregivers, I'd have been dead years ago. Through this lens, you can see we're all in this together. We are all citizens of the world. Given our interconnectedness, the greatest aspect of our human purpose is to generously help, serve, and love others. Do we have the courage to unconditionally love our neighbors, our so-called enemies, and love ourselves? I don't think anyone will disagree that we face enormous challenges in the 21st century. If we can courageously share our fears and limitations with each other and compassionately collaborate to solve problems, our human potential is boundless. If we can listen, understand, and help alleviate each other's suffering, then truly all things are possible. I gotta tell you what, that speech really shows the thing that is missing from today's society, because we are living in a society where everybody has different opinions, but sometimes we tend to be afraid in expressing our opinions because of the backlash that we might get from people that disagree with us. We can no longer have a conversation with anyone in this society without getting negative feedback or massive criticism, not constructive, but personal attacks. I mean, it's insane with what is happening. Something has happened in society where people are no longer talking to their other neighbors or friends that might share different beliefs with them. You're not seeing a Republican person, out with a Democrat person who, despite their differences, they talk about other things that they agree with and have in common. You're not seeing that in society anymore. And I don't know if that's what's being portrayed in the media nowadays or if that's what's really happening in society. But something has happened to where we've lost sight of that. And I think what Steve Gleason is trying to say is, look, we do have some challenges that we're facing in this century. We do have, some adversity. I'm facing adversity myself, is what he's saying. But yet, if we can, for a few moments, put aside our differences, talk about what's happening, talk about our fears and emotions, then gosh darn it, this world would be a much better place. And I know that's easier said than done, but Steve Gleason really hit the nail on the head with that speech. And, the guy, I mean, in all honesty, I think he's definitely one of the most impactful people in the world because, for him to go through this battle is really emotional. And, I have such great respect for Steve Gleason. I was not a Saints fan even on that night when he blocked the punt against the Atlanta Falcons, which, I had heard stories that it was the loudest moment in a Superdome history. And when you watch the broadcast of that particular play, the announcers on that Monday Night Football game, Mike Tirico, Tony Kornheiser, and Joe Theismann, the second he blocked that punt and the second the Saints picked it up and scored the touchdown on that same play, they kept silent because they knew the crowd was going loud. They were cheering very loudly, and the crowd was just going berserk. And for about a minute or so, they let the crowd tell the story because it was the first time that the Superdome had been cheering for something for a football game, and after the effects of Hurricane Katrina. And that's a moment that I think a lot of people wish they could have in this game, or in their lifetime, to have a moment where for one few seconds the crowd cheering on such a very exciting play at a very crucial moment of a game. And that moment where everybody came together just to show how special sports is. I can't say I've had a lot of those moments. There was one game in particular that stands out. I won't get into it that much because I don't want to take away from the conversation that we're having here. But it is without question a truly remarkable moment to see Steve Gleason be accepted as the Arthur Ashe Courage Award winner. And definitely going to continue to support him as he continues to provide for others with ALS in this case.
I'm going to take a quick break right now, but when we come back, I'm going to be continuing my thoughts on the ESPY Award show, and the one award that is really drawing a lot of criticism and somewhat controversy from the fans, especially those that really care about this award. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
So, moving right along, some other awards that were decisive there. There was the award for best team, which there were some good nominees. Obviously, you had the you had the Kansas City Chiefs, you had the Michigan Wolverines, Las Vegas Aces, Yukon Huskies, Oklahoma Sooners, Boston Celtics, Florida Panthers, and the team up north. I don't want to say their name because I don't want to jinx it since we're playing them in a series this weekend. A little bit disappointed, but still waiting for a revenge there. But turns out South Carolina's women's basketball team won for best team. And it's kind of crazy because there hasn't been a lot of times where the college basketball teams usually won. In fact, the last time a college basketball team, or college team in general, won a championship was back in 2001 when the Oklahoma Sooners football team shared the award with the New York Yankees. The Yankees had won their third straight World Series back in 2000. Oklahoma had won the national championship after defeating Florida State 13-2. So it's been a long time. And I think with what's happening, we saw the rise of women's college basketball in general, with South Carolina playing Iowa and Caitlin Clark in a national championship game. And that game generated more views than the men's national championship game, even though it was UConn fighting for their second championship against Purdue. The women's college basketball game generated a lot of views. Some people might say, oh, it was because of Caitlin Clark. Others might say, well, South Carolina is a great team. But South Carolina, the thing is, this South Carolina team wasn't expected to be as dominant of a team to win a national championship. And in fact, I might have said they were going for a second repeat, but actually LSU won it last year, and then South Carolina won it this year. But I'm saying South Carolina actually was not supposed to be a strong, dominant team. They lost some key players, but they didn't just rebuild, they retooled, they reloaded. And Dawn Staley had her team going undefeated throughout the entire season, and tremendous job for her and South Carolina as well. So, but then some other awards. Patrick Mahomes won Best Male Athlete. A'ja Wilson from the Las Vegas Aces of the WNBA, Best Female Athlete. Jaden Daniels, Best Men's College Athlete. Caitlin Clark, she got 2 awards, not only for Best College Athlete as a female, but also Best Record-Breaking Performance when she became the NCAA's all-time leading scorer in any sport. So a big job for her. I mean, she has just been doing a tremendous job, and she's been playing really well. She has done a tremendous job in the WNBA. And a lot of people might see her as Rookie of the Year. Some might say Angel Reese, some might say others, but, it is what it is. It's, Caitlin Clark is definitely deserving of that award as well. And just kind of looking at some of the other awards here, Lamar Jackson, he won Best Play. He caught his own pass for a first down in a game. Now, I mean, that's good and all that for Lamar Jackson, but that was in a game where you had that was the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, and they lost that game 17-10. You could have given the award to Jada Coleman of Oklahoma, who hit a walk-off homer to send the Sooners to their fourth straight softball championship. You could have given it to Anthony Edwards, who had the dunk of the year. And you could have given it to Alabama, who scored on 4th and 31 to beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl. So some better options in my mind instead of a big, freakishly looking play by Lamar Jackson. I can't control the votes, even though I wish I could. Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics won Best Championship Performance. And so that was another good one. You had Best Comeback Athlete, Simone Biles winning that for gymnastics. So a very deserving honor there. Okay, now here's where a lot of people were a little bit stunned and disappointed, at least. There was the nomination for Best Breakthrough Athlete. This is the award that is given to the person adjudged to have made the greatest breakthrough in a major international individual sport or North American professional team sport. It's usually given to a sports person in his or her rookie season at a given level, but may be won by any athlete who in a given year improves or her performance dramatically or otherwise becomes well recognized. So you had a very good list of nominations. The nominees were Juju Watkins of USC's women's basketball, Haley Bryant of LSU gymnastics, C.J. Stroud of the Texans, and Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs. Now, a lot of people were thinking it was going to be a two-horse race between C.J. Stroud and Victor Wembanyama. Stroud, because he won Rookie of the Year in the NFL and led the Texans to a turnaround season from 3 wins the previous year to 10 wins and the AFC South Division Championship, while setting a number of rookie records, although actually the only rookie record he set was most passing yards by a rookie in a single game. But then you had Victor Wembanyama, who came in and won Rookie of the Year for the San Antonio Spurs. And while the Spurs didn't really have a great record, you can kind of see the talent there from Wembanyama as he looks to bring the Spurs back to the days when they had David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, that great dynasty that they had down in San Antonio. So you had to think that it was going to be a two-horse race between C.J. Stroud and Victor Wembanyama. But as it turns out, Juju Watkins was the recipient for the award. And fans are, I don't want to say they're totally, disappointed or upset by it, but there was some questions as to why exactly she deserved to why she was the winner of the award and not C.J. Stroud and, or Victor Wembanyama. Because Stroud made the playoffs while Victor Wembanyama didn't, or Juju Watkins did. But here's the thing. USC last year, their women's basketball team had a really great season. They finished 29-6 in the Pac-12 in what is the last year of the Pac-12 before they are going to go to the Big Ten. They won the Pac-12 tournament, and they made it all the way to the Elite Eight before they ended up losing to the University of Connecticut in the Elite Eight. So, that was a very good season for USC, considering the fact that although USC is one of the most iconic traditional basketball names, going back to the days of Cheryl Miller, Reggie Miller's sister, and Lisa Leslie, just some players who were there for USC, they haven't really been a dominant basketball powerhouse like that of South Carolina or UConn or LSU as of lately, or Stanford, just to throw them out there. Like, they haven't really developed into that basketball power, but here comes Juju Watkins, and she is able to turn that program around, or at least, and she did so in her freshman season. I mean, national record holder for most points scored by our freshman, 920 points. Maybe another 80 points. Or maybe if they had gone on further, they would have probably gotten her to 1,000, but who knows. She was number 2 scorer in the nation with 27.1 points per game, and she scored a career best 51 points, which was the most by anyone in the 2023-24 season. Naismith Trophy finalist. I mean, you can't argue. Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, the last Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. It's just, somebody that really did such a great job. And yes, she got overlooked because of Caitlin Clark and what Clark was doing with Iowa. But you can't deny that if Caitlin Clark was number 1, then probably Juju Watkins could have had a case to be the number 2 best player in the country. Of course, Angel Reese was still there at LSU, for a time being. But Juju Watkins, you have to say that, there's no reason why she didn't deserve to win the award when you look up her statistical numbers. And I'll say this. CJ Stroud was asked about, Juju Watkins winning Best Breakthrough Athlete at the ESPYs, and he gave a really great answer. He said, "First and foremost, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." We all know that he's a devout Christian. Without him, I wouldn't have been blessed with the opportunity to be nominated for this award. Juju is an amazing athlete and 100% deserves recognition for what she's doing for women's basketball and at USC. I'm happy to see her win and wish her the best. And I think that's a really good answer. I know a lot of people are so invested in, well, CJ Stroud should have won this award or Victor should have won this award. But you know what? I was doing some thinking. The ESPY Awards, I mean, yes, it's nice that ESPN has their awards to honor the athletes, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't matter because all these athletes are great players. I mean, look, there might have been people that saw Victor Wembanyama have the season that he had. There might have been people that saw CJ Stroud have the season that they had. Could they have seen that from Juju Watkins? No. I mean, how many freshmen do you know that would go on to have the best mark by a freshman in history or finish as the number 2 scorer behind one Caitlin Clark? How many freshmen could you see that? And certainly with what's happening with the women's basketball game, that they are starting to heat up, getting more recognition. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Juju Watkins deserves to win the award. But you know what? I really could care less about awards like this because while it is nice to be recognized by the fans and everything, there are bigger accomplishments out there. If you ask CJ Stroud what he wants most, he would rather say, I want to win a Super Bowl. If you ask Victor Wembanyama what he wants most, he might say he wants to win the MVP, but he would more than likely say he wants to win another championship for the Spurs. And I'm pretty sure Juju Watkins would probably tell you, it's nice and all that, but I would rather much win a national championship with USC. And she's going to come back, and she is going to lead the Trojans. And I'll say this about her. She led the Trojans to a victory over Texas A&M Corpus Christi in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Now, that was the team that we lost to in the tournament championship game, the conference tournament championship game to that team. We lost to Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and they're a good team, don't get me wrong. We beat them twice during the regular season, but they got us when it mattered the most. So Corpus Christi ended up going to LA to take on USC. We ended up going to Pullman, Washington to take on Washington State. So you can just be the judge of which would you rather have. But I think Juju Watkins should get this award, and I think it's really fair because I don't really look at these ESPY awards as seriously as I used to years ago. 2017, I wanted the Stros to win the Best Game Award, but they didn't. They lost to USA Hockey, who won the gold medal against Canada. But then they won Best Team, so everything worked out for itself. And that was a great accomplishment to be recognized for that. But, now, years later, I don't look at the ESPY Awards the same. And it's not so much that with all this talk of politics and, trying to be inclusive and everything. Look, I'm all for it, but I just think there's just a little lackluster of things. I don't know what it is, but something about the ESPY Awards just doesn't feel the same to me as it might have been years ago. And it's sad because I used to love watching the ESPY Awards, but I don't know what's changed or what's different. It just doesn't have that same type of vibe around. But I guess we're living in a society where things that used to be so popular once upon a time try to stay that way, but they kind of lose some of that luster, especially with how society is going on in this world. But that's just my thoughts on the whole matter as well. So, as far as I'm concerned, give Juju Watkins the award. She deserves it. She's going to be a great player, and I wish her all the best. And, knock on wood, if we happen to see her at the NCAA tournament next year, that is, if Lamar makes it to the NCAA tournament next year in women's basketball, take it easy on our girls, will you? So,
Hey, I just saw something that I thought would be a really good topic to close out the show with. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. About set to close the show, but before we do, I got one more final topic to discuss. I'll make it a quick one because I know we got plans for the rest of the day. Have you ever seen those like US maps where each state has a picture of like a team that they're either cheering for in a championship series or a team that they really dislike the most and all that? Have you ever seen those kind of pictures? Like you might see them on Instagram or Twitter just to kind of give opinions on who people are rooting for or people who dislike in each U.S. state. Well, I thought this was kind of interesting. College Football Edit's Instagram page had a picture of the United States, and they each have a team. Each state has a college football team, and the title of this is called The Most Hated College Football Team in Each State. So, for instance, Texas, the team that is hated down there in the state of Texas is ironically the University of Texas, which is the same thing for Oklahoma because they also hate the University of Texas, and then same thing with Nebraska, who hates the University of Texas. And kind of interesting because you got Colorado, who doesn't like Nebraska, as do South Dakota, but then right above South Dakota is North Dakota, and they hate Michigan. And Minnesota is next, and they hate Wisconsin. Then you have Oregon, who hates Washington, and Washington, who hates Oregon. So, and here's an interesting one. USC, we talked a little bit about Juju Watkins in this program, but USC is the most hated team in the state of California, which I guess I can kind of understand it because of the tradition and everything. So, yeah. And then, well, Alabama, it's... you would think that there would be more people, a mixture of people that would hate Auburn or Alabama, but most people hate Auburn, which kind of shows you the narrative of the story of Big Brother, Little Brother. And I'm not trying to say which one's the big brother, which one's the little brother here, because that is a very fierce rivalry. So, and here's an interesting one. Maine hates Ohio State. Same thing with New York, which is kind of interesting because you would think that there'd be other candidates like Michigan or just trying to think of a team up there in that circumstance. But I think they would have hated either Michigan or maybe Notre Dame. And I'm surprised. Well, actually, one state has Notre Dame. And then, okay, how does Rhode Island hate Auburn? And how does New Hampshire hate Auburn? Like, I don't quite understand this list at times, people. But, and then Wyoming hates Colorado State? Oh my gosh. Like, and then you got Hawaii that doesn't like Boise State. I mean, okay, now that I see this, it's based on a Reddit poll. And obviously, the Reddit polls are very distrustworthy as well. But anyways, the reason why I bring all this up is because when I was looking at this, there was one state in particular that caught my attention. And that, of course, was the state of New Mexico. Now, you'd think that New Mexico would hate schools like Texas or Texas A&M, maybe Oklahoma or Arizona State since it's right there, or maybe Colorado. Colorado should be getting some hate because they're obviously looking to improve on their 4-8 season. But you would think that New Mexico would hate any of those schools. But according to this Reddit poll, it was Baylor that the state of New Mexico hates. And I'm sitting there like, why? Why does New Mexico hate Baylor so much? And I don't quite understand it, to tell you the truth. It's really crazy when you think about it. But I had to do a little bit of digging and research, and I came across my former supervisor, Heath Nielsen, who I used to work with at the Baylor Athletics Communications Department when I was in college. He actually had a very interesting point, because there was one, like, I think Baylor and New Mexico played each other one time in football, but there was actually a case where Baylor defeated New Mexico State by the final score of 16-13, but that was back on September 22nd of 2001, 11 days after 9/11, and I thought it was kind of weird that, I don't know what that case may be. I don't know if maybe New Mexico was trying to get back into the Big 12 or so, or maybe there was some other secret things that have been going on. I don't know what's going on. Like, I can't understand it. Like, if you're from New Mexico and you hate Baylor, could you please let me know why you hate Baylor or so much? Or if you don't think that this is the right list, give me the list of the school that you think deserves to be New Mexico's most hated. Because, again, this is a Reddit. And Reddit, it's like a community-wide fan chat or something to that effect. But I don't understand it. Like, why does New Mexico hate Baylor? Well, just trying to think about it more clearly. I mean, historically, they've met each other 3 times, Baylor and New Mexico. And Baylor won the first 2 matchups. The first match was back in 1984 when Baylor destroyed the Lobos 38-2. Then they won that. They had a home and away. They won the game against New Mexico 16-13 in 2001, as I said earlier. But then when they went down to Albuquerque, New Mexico shut them out 23-0. And that's the last time that Baylor and New Mexico have played each other. So I'm just curious. I don't understand why New Mexico would hate Baylor, unless there was more to it than just football and everything. And I think I can understand one particular option, but I'm not going to go right into it, because this is not really a case of ragging on my alumni or for anything they might have done, or ragging on New Mexico, since I have family members who are related or have worked in New Mexico as well. And I think I know somebody that works in New Mexico. But I have great respect for the University of New Mexico. I just don't understand why, of all the schools, according to this Reddit poll, they hate Baylor so much. And I think it's ridiculous, to tell you the truth. Because I think there are other options you should hate. Colorado, Arizona State, USC, I mean, look, the Pac-12 is no longer, but I just think it's kind of sad and unfortunate that it has come down to this. And I'm trying to think, what conference was New Mexico going to for football? I don't know if they were moving on. They're moving to the Mountain West. So, I don't know. Maybe, I guess they were trying to get back to a Big 12 or Power 5, and maybe Baylor just said, sorry, New Mexico, we're going to have to say no to you. And I think that's what New Mexico is holding on to a grudge. But I don't know. Hopefully they can get that relationships resolved, and maybe we'll play each other down the line. I think we should play each other. It's been 22 years, and I think Baylor and New Mexico needs to play each other again, just to kind of get a little more experience, so that way we can resolve this issue. But I think there shouldn't be any hate from New Mexico on Baylor. So, yeah. Anyways, that's going to wrap things up for this edition of Krocking, Locking, and Dropping. And once again, folks, be aware that Mark T. Robinson and I are going to have another podcast of Two Pals on a Pod coming out soon next week. We're hoping to get together as well, and we cannot wait for that. You can listen to that podcast on, Buzzsprout and Spotify, and as well as Apple iTunes as well. As far as this podcast, Krocking, Locking, and Dropping, I'm going to upload this to my YouTube channel at KWCLINE91,
And then I'm also going to upload it to Podbean and Spotify as well. So you cannot, if you can't subscribe to any one of those, subscribe to the other options that you have available. So, hey, listen, I hope you guys have yourselves a great weekend and all that. And I may be a little bit unavailable for the next couple of weeks because I'm expected to go on a trip. And where I'm going, there's not going to be a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of cellular data. At least that's what my dad tells me to call it. There's hardly any Wi-Fi or cellular data and everything to talk about this. So I may be unavailable for at least a couple of weeks as I get to go on vacation with my folks. But don't worry, I will be back with another podcast as soon as possible. And listen, if you guys don't mind, tell your friends about me and let them hear my podcast and give me some feedback, give me some comments and, constructive criticisms. Just say, hey, you're doing great with this, but here's what you can do better and all that. And I know, most podcasts nowadays want to have, special guests and everything, but we'll have to wait and see, how this continues to go on. So folks, just, continue to feel free to comment on my page. Don't worry, I can handle it. And I hope you guys have yourselves a really great weekend and, continue to stay safe. And if you're in Houston, you're still missing some power, I hope you get that power situation back. Trust me, folks, even though I'm not in Houston right now, as I'm currently in Beaumont, I still consider Houston my home, and I am not too happy with the whole electrical situation down there. And speaking of which, I know there was an article, somebody that criticized the Astros for having fans come to the game where everybody else has the power. Listen, where are those fans going to go? What are they going to do when they don't have any power? If there's an opportunity for entertainment, guess what? They're going to go to that opportunity for some entertainment to relieve themselves. It happened in 2017, and it's going to happen again for fans to go to the game, especially in the aftermath of power. But if you're continuing to struggle without power, folks, just hang in there. You'll be fine. It's Houston strong all the way. And as far as the rest of y'all, I hope you guys continue to come back and support me in these podcasts. And hey, let's keep this thing rolling. So have yourselves a great one, and I'll see you guys next time on Krocking, Locking, and Dropping with the K-Rock.